Hello, this is Livia, and thank you for joining me today for the interview with Mercer, an online entrepreneur and the author of Step Up and Speak, the step-by-step blueprint to winning presentations. So I'd like to welcome Dal. Welcome to the interview. It was lovely to have you on here today.
Thank you very much, Livia.
Now, Dal, what I would like to do during this time talking with you is to get a little bit of your story, how you started, and also to really get some tips and techniques that we can take away from this interview. So not just learning about you and the program that you have created, but also something that's solid that we can take away and implement straight away into our lives.
Most definitely. I want to give you some how-to information, and for the viewers as well, give them something that they can take away and implement into their presentations for sure.
Because that's, after all, that's what we're all looking for, is to improve ourselves.
For sure.
But before we start that, can I ask you a little bit about your story, how you got started and what brought you to this point?
Sure. I had a pretty regular childhood, a good childhood I could say, and I'm very grateful for my parents for that. But one thing I did lack as a child was confidence. I really had zero confidence, and I was an uncomfortable kid. You know, I had big buck teeth and ears that stuck out, so I really wasn't very confident. And that really continued through my teen years. I was teased a lot as a child. And so I was never really confident in front of people at all. So to be public speaking, it really is quite a contrast. And so through the years, I always had a passion for business, but that always seemed to hold me back because my confidence didn't allow me to explore that part of me. And I had a lot of menial jobs, from security guards to storeman, truck driver, very menial tasks. But over that time, I really worked on myself. I worked on my personality and that personal development. And I had a couple of businesses. Some of them did quite well. Others, I lost everything. I lost everything financially. I had no home for a while. I was living in a friend's caravan in a backyard. And so it really wasn't rosy beginnings. But one area which I continued to go back to was public speaking and learning how to do that effectively. Because what happened is, even though I had a passion for computers and business, I had no business. I had no customers. And so what I did was I used speaking as a way of developing new customers and new business. And people love to buy from experts. They really do. And if you can perceive yourself as an expert and go and attend some of these small business clubs, then you'll find that you have more business. So that's one advantage of learning how to present.
I think we can all sympathise with not having much confidence. A lot of us do, especially when it comes to public speaking, do have a lack of self-confidence about us.
Yes.
But it's so true what you said is to grow our business, we need that confidence. So how do you get that confidence? How did you work on that?
Well, it's that fear, isn't it? That fear holds so many people back, and that fear of public speaking is really an irrational fear. It's not real, but even though it's irrational, it still doesn't make it any less real in our own bodies. And the thing with fear is, the fear itself is not a bad thing. And it really is designed to protect us from hurt. Like if we're crossing the street and we're on the curb there and we're ready to get crossed over, and we have a car which is, flying down the other way, then that fear in our brain kicks into high gear and gets us off the road and into safety. So in that case, fear is serving us well. It's protecting us. But where it holds us back is public speaking, because really fear and excitement are very, very closely linked biochemically in our body. It's just how we determine it in our own minds.
Okay, so when you talk about public speaking, is it really just speaking from the platform, a podium, to a big crowd, or what do you mean by public speaking?
Well, presentation skills is not just about presenting to the podium. It can be talking to a camera like this, or it can be talking one-on-one. So whether you're talking to one person or 100 persons, the principles of presentation skills and communication skills are exactly the same. When you open your mouth, you have a responsibility to your listener. And that's a responsibility that we shouldn't take lightly, because research was done a little while ago in America where they interviewed executives who were on about $250,000 per year. Mm-hmm. And more than anything else was their communication skills and their presentation skills, both on a personal basis and also in a group environment as well. And they attributed that more than anything else, more than academic and certificates and all that, for the reason they got their promotion. And so they were able to learn a method of how to present and how to communicate. And that's the best part. You don't have to be a natural-born speaker. I was never a natural-born communicator, but you just learn step by step. There's certain methodology that a person can follow on how to be an effective speaker, and they can control those nerves as long as you don't let them overtake you. Like, you know, in the example of some entertainers, well-known entertainer like Bruce Springsteen, he still gets petrified before going on stage.
Is that right?
He still gets petrified, so much so that he feels like he's going to vomit. And, you know, not many of us get to that point before presenting, but he feels like he's going to vomit. And when he gets to that point, he knows he's ready. And it just shows that it's how you evaluate those feelings. Because when a person is fearful, it's how they evaluate. If a person's in fear, they're asking themselves two primary questions in their mind. The first question is, what does this mean? And the second question is, what shall I do? And when the basis on how you answer those questions in your own mind will determine whether you enjoy the experience, that it's exciting for you, or you're fearful of it. So it's the same chemical reaction, but different way of evaluating that same experience.
You know that, Dale, that's actually quite comforting for us to know, mere mortals, that entertainers...
I'm a mere mortal, believe me.
Well, entertainers, we don't normally see their nerves.
No.
They come out on stage and we see this stage presence.
That's right.
And we're not aware of what they go through behind the stage. So it's actually quite comforting to know that they go through the whole fear stage as well.
And it's interesting that you mentioned stage presence, because we all have a stage presence. And a stage presence should never be artificial. It should be an extension of who we already are. See, there's lots of people who would know who Anthony Robbins is, and there's a lot of people who try to knock off his style. And even though he's got a great style, you should never knock off another person. Otherwise, you'll always be a copy of Anthony Robbins or Brian Tracy. The idea and the goal should be the best you. And the best me. It should be an extension of our personality. And if we don't like who we are, then that's where we need to work on ourselves so we do like who we are and we do want to have that stage presence.
Okay. So you mentioned that chemically the fear and excitement is very closely linked. How would you turn fear into excitement?
Well, part of it is preparation. For example, like in my step-by-step system, I give a lot of preparation techniques, and preparation is so important. I remember a man who I talked to, and he wasn't a bad speaker. English wasn't his first language. He was French is his first language, and he had a presentation which was about 5 weeks away, and already he was just freaking out about it. He was so frightened and nervous. And so I said to him, well, you know, so let's start the preparation. But he procrastinated and procrastinated, put it off and put it off and put it off, until finally the last week he started his preparation. And so by the time he gave the talk, he was just beside himself. He just couldn't control it. He was so fearful. He ended up doing a very good job, but he could have so much minimized the fear just by effective preparation. And the problem is a lot of people just don't know how to prepare. And because they think they're preparing, they're really not. They're not preparing at all.
Okay. So how would you prepare? Like you mentioned time, which is obviously important, but you know, where do you choose a topic? Or some of us have the topic given to us. So how do you go about preparing it? Where do you start?
Well, if you do get to select your own topic, depending on what environment you're in, whether it's a college student or an executive or a minister, this program really helps everyone. And if you do get to pick your own topic, then first of all, pick something you're passionate about. You know, it's so important. We've all got passions, we've all got interests, and when you pick something that you're passionate about, you find it very easy to create the material, and material just creates itself. So start with your own passion. If you don't get to select your own topic, then find something within that topic that you are passionate about. For example, if you had, say, you know, you had a subject, you had to talk about brick walls. I mean, there's nothing exciting about brick walls, and that would be the best speech. But perhaps you have an interest in history, and so you go in and you delve about the history of stone walls and the history of concrete and where concrete came from. And as ridiculous as that sounds, you're finding something that you are passionate about, the history. And maybe you're a history person, so you love to talk about that. So you bring those elements into your talk, and that way it gives your talk more life naturally.
Wow, that's great advice, especially for, say, college students who have to prepare speeches on topics that might not have any interest in,
Yes.
but finding something that they